3 of the most expensive pizzas in the world. At $250, the Gordon Ramsay pizza at May's restaurant in London once held the Guinness World Record for the most expensive pizza in the world. It comes topped with Italian onion puree, buffalo mozzarella, pancetta, and shaved white truffles. The Nino Bellissima pizza at Gino's restaurant in New York City costs $1,000. It's topped with 6 different types of caviars and 2 whole lobster tails. It reportedly costs the restaurant $720 to make. Finally, the most expensive pizza in the world is served by Renato Viola. It takes 72 hours to prepare and comes topped with 3 rare types of caviar and Norwegian lobster. It's served with expensive champagne and rare cognac. The chef even comes to your house to prepare it, but it'll cost you $12,000. 5 close calls caught on camera. A fan falls from the ceiling, luckily landing right in the middle of people sitting on the floor. This car tries to pass a trailer and nearly runs into the oncoming traffic. A guy on a motorcycle nearly collides with a horse and a buggy crossing the road. This woman runs across the street and is nearly hit by a truck before slipping, falling, and just barely missing the back of the truck's tire. 5 tips for surviving an earthquake. The first thing you want to do is cover your head and take shelter under a table or a desk. If you're outside, get to an area that's free from tall buildings and power lines. Do not attempt to run during an intense quake, because you're likely to injure yourself. Assess yourself and anyone you're with for possible injuries, because you may not have noticed them during the earthquake. Check your gas line for damages. If you smell gas, leave immediately. And finally, the number 1 tip is to prepare ahead of time. If you live in a high-risk area, make yourself an earthquake kit to have in your house and talk through a plan with your family. The strangest Guinness World Records you've never heard of. The world's strangest diet belongs to a Frenchman who throughout his life ate a total of 18 bicycles, 15 grocery carts, 7 TVs, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds, a pair of skis, and a computer. The world's longest noodle was made in a restaurant in China and measured over 3,000 meters in length. A lab and research employee for Dr. Scholl's holds a record for the most armpits and feet sniffed. In 2019, the fastest time to push an orange 1 mile with their nose went to Arita Furman, who completed it in 22 minutes and 41 seconds. Finally, the longest attack of hiccups belongs to Charles Osborne, who got the hiccups in 1922 and had them for 68 years until the day he died. Did you know bananas are going extinct? Currently, the most common and available type of banana on the market is Cavendish. But this wasn't always the case. Up until the 1960s, a different type of banana called the Gros Michel was in stores. But a fungus called Panama disease destroyed thousands of banana crops around the world, which eventually caused the Gros Michel banana to go extinct. It was then replaced with a more disease-resistant banana, which is the Cavendish. Now, 60 years later, the fungus is back and threatening to repeat history. Due to the lack of genetic diversity in Cavendish bananas, they're not as resistant to fungus like they once were. And the fungus has also evolved to be immune to most pesticides. One expert estimates that Panama disease could reduce banana production by 80 to 85% each year, which could eventually lead to extinction, or at very least, cost you a lot more at the grocery store. 5 facts you didn't know about animals. Koala bear fingerprints are almost identical to human fingerprints. So much so that it's almost impossible to tell them apart. There are over 470 million dogs in the world. That's only 1 dog per 16 people. A group of owls is called a parliament. Frogs are able to freeze themselves without dying to endure cold temperatures. Then they can thaw themselves out when it becomes warm again. And finally, sloths poop only once a week, and it can take them up to 1 month to digest a single leaf. Japanese golfers have hole-in-one insurance. To get a hole-in-one, it might seem very rare and lucky to you, but in Japan, many golfers would disagree. At golf courses around the world, it's a tradition for whoever sinks a hole-in-one, they buy the rest of the golfers a round of drinks. But in Japan, the expectations are way higher. The golfers are supposed to spend thousands of dollars on food, drinks, and presents for their friends to celebrate. So the solution is hole-in-one insurance. In the 1980s, golf insurance firms started to pop up. They offered yearly policies to cover the expenses of a hole-in-one party. Today, an average policy costs around $65 USD per year. And if you get a hole-in-one, you get $3,500 to spend on the party. It's estimated that 4 million Japanese golfers, or 30% of amateur golfers, are covered. 5 of the most expensive flops in movie history. The movie Ali was a huge success and even earned Will Smith his first Oscar nomination, but it underperformed at the box office and lost $21.3 million. Despite becoming an internet phenomenon, phenomenon, the movie adaptation of the musical Cats ended up losing $24.5 million. Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within is a 2001 movie based on the video game series. It ended up losing almost $52 million. The 2010 romantic comedy called How Do You Know, starring Reese Witherspoon and Paul Rudd, had a huge budget and also disappointing box office sales, leading to a loss of over $70 million. And finally, the 2020 live-action remake of Mulan was never in theaters, but was still reported to have lost $141 million. The Apollo 13 space mission was supposed to be another boring mission to the moon, but by the end, the whole world was watching. So, in 1969, the astronauts of Apollo 11 completed the first mission to the moon. 500 million people watched on TV and history was made. But only a year later, when it came time for Apollo 13, the hype had died way down. There was a live telecast of the journey, but not a single one of the major networks broadcasted it. At one point, someone from Mission Control actually said, "We're bored to tears down here." But then, when Apollo 13 was 4/5 of the way to the moon, a damaged oxygen tank exploded and ripped a hole in the spacecraft. The 3 astronauts on board were in a fight for survival, and the media quickly picked up the story. When the men re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, 40 million Americans and countless people from around the world were watching. Against all odds, the men made it back safely, and what began as a boring mission ends as one of the most captivating real-life stories of all time. People vs. Nature, Part 2. These passengers on a cruise ship struggle against massive waves. These hikers in Ireland struggle to walk upright against this intense wind. This man watches helplessly as he loses his house to a river. This skier is just able to outrun a massive avalanche. And finally, this teenage boy endures a hailstorm in his underwear for the sake of making a video. Hundreds of pounds of pasta were found dumped in the woods. This man was recently taking a walk in his neighborhood in Old Bridge, New Jersey, when he came across something unusual. Someone had dumped a massive amount of pasta in the woods. Literal mounds of spaghetti, elbow macaroni, and ziti. The pasta was uncooked, but rainwater had softened the noodles, making them appear to be cooked. It took 15 wheelbarrows to remove the estimated 500 pounds of pasta. The mystery of who dumped it and why remains a mystery, but some people in the community believe it was a resident attempting to clean out his deceased mother's house. People versus animals. This man brings his young daughter fishing for catfish, but when he goes to reel in his catch, they get an unexpected surprise.
Oh my God! That's a big gator, buddy.
This mama moose charges at an unexpected cyclist. This man tries to ride a pig, but the pig said nope. This man is quick to give up on his own advice while handling a lion. And finally, this boy in Australia was just trying to ride on his scooter when he came across a magpie that tried to run him off the road. This woman needed a new kidney and her dog found a donor. 44-year-old Lucy Humphrey had battled her whole adult life with lupus. And in 2017, the doctors told her that she needs a new kidney, and that if she didn't find one in the next 5 years, she could die. After hearing this news, Lucy and her husband decided to take a much-needed vacation to the beach along with their 2 Doberman dogs. While at the beach, one of their dogs named Indy kept running over to another person at the beach who was crocheting. The 3rd time the dog ran over, Lucy and her husband went and apologized. The 3 of them then started talking, and Lucy told them that she had just joined the kidney donation registry. The 2 of them then exchanged numbers, and 1 blood test later revealed that these 2 women were a perfect match. The odds of this are 1 in 22 million. In the end, Lucy got her new kidney and remains friends with the donor. Here's how to survive a rip current. Rip currents are the leading cause of lifeguard rescues on the beach, and they're responsible for hundreds of deaths by drowning every year. So here's what to do if you ever find yourself in one. A rip is a strong and narrow current of water which moves directly away from shore. If you're on the beach, it often looks like a calm spot of water in between the waves. If you find yourself being carried away from shore in a rip current, your first step is to stay calm, because panicking will tire you out and you need energy to stay floating. If you're a strong swimmer, your next step will be to try swimming parallel to the shoreline until you escape. But if you're less confident in your ability to swim, you'll want to try and stay floating and get someone to help. Scientists discovered that 80 to 90% of rip currents travel in large circles. So if you can stay afloat above water, the current will most likely take you back to shore. The most important thing to remember is do not try and swim back to shore, because even the weakest rip current is stronger than the best Olympic swimmer. Here's why people love spicy food even though it hurts them. There are all sorts of different types of spicy foods, ranging from mustard to sparkling water. But the type of heat that we most associate with spicy food comes from a chemical called capsaicin. Capsaicin is found in hot peppers like habaneros and bird's eye chilies. When we eat these things, the capsaicin binds to pain receptors on the nerves in our mouths. And those receptors send out signals to tell our body the temperature is rising. It essentially tricks your brain into thinking your mouth is actually on fire. So why the heck do some people like this? Well, in response to the pain from spicy foods, your body creates endorphins and dopamine. This can create a euphoric feeling similar to a runner's high, which gives spicy food an addictive quality. But the love for spicy food ultimately comes down to tolerance and preference. Stop scrolling! Take this 1-minute personality test with me. This test was designed by psychology professor Richard Wiseman. Start by placing your arms straight out in front of you with your palms down. Then close your eyes. Now imagine that there's helium balloons attached to the fingers on your right hand. At the same time, imagine a pile of books resting on your left hand. So the balloons are pulling your right hand up and the books are pushing your left hand down. Keep your eyes closed for a moment and remember your hands are being pushed and pulled. Now open your eyes. If your hands are far apart, you're more imaginative and sensitive. If your hands are closer together, you're more logical and analytical. And if you didn't close your eyes, Professor Wiseman thinks you're a little suspicious. This 90-year-old woman lives out her birthday dream thanks to a biker gang. This is Barbara Morris, an elderly woman that lives in a nursing home in Manchester, England. Several years ago, Barbara told her children that if she lived to 90 years old, she had a birthday wish: to take a ride on a motorcycle like she did when she was younger. Barbara had figured that her children had forgot about her biker dreams, so she was stunned that on her 90th birthday, her son surprised her with a local biker gang and a Harley Davidson for her to ride. Barbara hopped on the back of the bike and rode with the 13 other bikers nearly 7 miles to a nearby pub. Her children describe her as having a daredevil spirit and nerves of steel. But for Barbara, she said she was just happy to feel wind blowing on her face. 5 true facts that sound made up. In any random group of 23 people, there's more than a 50% chance that 2 of them have a birthday on the same day. With a group of 57 people, that probability goes to 99%. The shortest war in history, which was the Anglo-Zanzibar War, lasted a total of 38 minutes. There's actually a species of ant that only exists in New York, and it's called Manhattan ant. The apples you buy at a supermarket could be 1 year old. Most apples are picked, coated in wax, then sent to cold storage for several months before ending up in a store. The tongue of a blue whale weighs around the same weight as an entire elephant. 5 rare phobias you've never heard of. Plutophobia is fear of money. People with this condition are afraid of handling, making, and being around money. Some people might even sabotage their own careers to avoid making money. Omphalophobia is fear of belly buttons. In an extreme case, one person with this phobia became physically sick from just the sight of a belly button. Decidophobia is exactly what it sounds like, a fear of making decisions. Dextrophobia is the fear of having objects on the right side of your body. This can also include the fear of being right-handed. And lastly, there's phobophobia, which is, you guessed it, the fear of phobias. 5 huge pop songs that were originally written for other artists. Pharrell originally wrote the song Happy for CeeLo Green, but studio executives wanted Pharrell to sing it himself, and it went on to become a mega hit. The Beyoncé breakup song called Irreplaceable has distinct country vibes because it was originally meant for a country singer like Shania Twain or Faith Hill. Selena Gomez's first song called Come and Get It was a huge hit that started her music career, but the song was originally written for Rihanna, who passed on it. And speaking of Rihanna, her hit song called Umbrella was written for Britney Spears in 2007, but both her and Mary J. Blige passed on it. And finally, Baby One More Time is how the world was introduced to Britney Spears, but it was first offered to the girl group called TLC. 5 childhood toys that are now worth a fortune. An original set of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures from the 1980s are now worth around $1,300. Any of the original Barbie dolls manufactured between 1959 and 1969 can easily sell for in between $10,000 and $15,000 today. Most Hot Wheels aren't worth much, but if you happen to have one of the rare cars, like the 1970 Mighty Maverick, you could sell it for around $15,000. Same goes with Pokemon cards. Some are worthless, but some are extremely valuable, like this Crystal Charizard card that sold for over $25,000. Lastly, we have this rocket-firing Boba Fett action figure. It was pulled from stores due to safety concerns, so only a few were actually sold. And in 2015, one of them sold at an auction for $185,000. This is the world's smallest dog. Her name is Pearl, and she's a 2-year-old Chihuahua that lives in Central Florida. Pearl stands at 3.59 inches tall and weighs 1.2 pounds. She's shorter than a popsicle stick and around the same length as a $1 bill, and she can fit in the palm of your hand. Pearl was recently awarded the Guinness World Record for being the smallest and shortest dog in the world. She's a descendant of the previous world record holder, Miracle Millie, who is 3.8 inches tall, which is just 0.2 inches taller than Pearl. Pearl's owner describes her as a calm dog who likes to go for walks and play with her toys. She also said that Pearl loves the attraction she gets for being so tiny. 5 of the most expensive mistakes in history. Ronald Wayne was one of the co-founders of Apple, but only 12 days into the company, he sold his share to the other founders for $800. And obviously, Apple went on to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. In 1999, NASA lost the $125 million Mars orbiter due to the engineers forgetting to convert US measurements to metric measurements. In 2003, Red Lobster offered an all-you-can-eat deal on snow crab legs, but they way underestimated how much their customers would actually eat. So the promotion ended up losing the company $3 million. Blockbuster refused an offer from Netflix to partner and take over the digital side of the business. Blockbuster ended up going bankrupt, and today, Netflix is worth around $150 billion. And finally, Sergio Martinez started one of the biggest wildfires in California history when he was trying to signal for help after he got lost in the mountains. The fire nearly burned 275,000 acres and caused $1.3 billion in damages. 5 insanely lucky moments in sports. In the final seconds of this high school basketball game, a player throws up a wild full court shot and manages to make it to win the game. Next up, this baton handoff should have been a disaster, but because of a few lucky bounces, the runners were able to save it. During a college football game, this pass should have easily been intercepted, but luckily for Auburn, 2 players from the other team collided, and the ball flew right into the arms of the receiver to complete the touchdown. After an incredible volley, it seems like Roger Federer is about to lose the point, but he's somehow able to make an incredible return between his legs. Okay, this one might not be lucky, this one might just be skill. And finally, Russell Westbrook is out of control as he dribbles towards the net. Not only does he draw a foul, he tosses up a Hail Mary that rolls off the backboard, hits the rim, then bounces in. People versus nature. When this little girl tries to open her front door, the wind blows the door open and takes her with it. These cyclists were enjoying a ride when all of a sudden a huge tree branch falls and takes them out. People at this wedding were enjoying a beautiful outside reception in Hawaii when all of a sudden a big wave literally comes and crashes the party. Plastic umbrellas are no match for a windy day in Istanbul. And finally, this man decided to skate shirtless across a frozen canal in Amsterdam when the ice suddenly broke and he fell into the water. Life advice from people in their 100s. At 102 years old, Dr. Gladys McGarry says, just don't get stuck. Or if you do, start looking for the light. It's always there, you just have to keep looking for it. Flossie Dickey was a 110-year-old woman who, when asked for her advice on living such a long life, said, I don't fight it, I love it. Dr. Howard Tucker is the oldest practicing doctor at 100 years old, so it makes sense that his advice is don't retire. Agnes Fenton, an 111-year-old from New Jersey, credited her long life to beer and whiskey and advised younger folks to stay stylish. Here are some of the most popular snacks in different countries. Argentina is the world's #1 consumer of alfajores, which are sandwich cookies stuffed with dulce de leche and dipped in chocolate. Honey butter chips were so popular when they first released in Korea in 2014 that they sold out everywhere in just a matter of months and inspired competitors to make similar flavors. In Africa, people snack on bitlong, which is a salted and cured meat like jerky but way easier to chew. Bomba is a puffed corn peanut butter snack that's popular in Israel. Stroop waffles are thin waffle cookies with a caramel filling first sold in the Netherlands but now sold all over the world. And finally, Tim Tams are a biscuit cookie and staple in Australia. It even inspired the creation of the Tim Tam Slam, where you bite the corners of the cookie, then use it as a straw to drink a hot cup of tea, then finish it off by eating the melted cookie. This woman won the lottery 4 times. Her name is Joanne R. Ginther, and she is originally from Texas. In 1993, Ginther won her first lottery and a prize of $5.4 million. She won the lottery again in 2006 and then again in 2010, bringing her total lottery winnings to $20.4 million. One mathematician estimated that the odds of hitting 4 big wins were 1 in 18 septillion. So how could this happen? Is she the luckiest woman alive? Probably, but it's more likely that there is some kind of scam involved. Some investigation revealed that Ginther was a mathematics professor who specialized in statistics, and most people who study the case agree that the odds are just too unlikely to be a coincidence. But for now, Ginther enjoys her lottery winnings in Las Vegas and keeps a low profile. 3 companies that turned out to be total scams. Theranos was founded by Elizabeth Holmes when she was just 19 years old. She claimed to have invented a device that could run blood tests with only a single drop of blood. The company raised over $700 million until it was revealed that the machine never worked, and Holmes was recently sentenced to 11 years in prison. Juicero raised $120 million from big investors like Google and Kobe Bryant for an at-home single-serve juicer. The machines were sold for $8.99 and only worked using pouches sold by the company for a monthly subscription. In 2017, a video went viral showing that you could squeeze the Juicero pouches with your hands, and 5 months later, the company was dead. Finally, we have Z-Best, a carpet cleaning company started by a 16-year-old boy named Barry Minkow. On the outside, Z-Best appeared to be a successful business, but it turns out that the company was a front for a massive Ponzi scheme that costed investors $100 million. At age 22, the boy was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Outdated laws you won't believe still exist. In Louisiana, you can be fined $500 for delivering a pizza to someone else's house. In North Carolina, it's illegal for a bingo game to last more than 5 hours. It's also illegal to be drunk while you're playing it. In South Carolina, pinball is considered too addictive for kids, so you have to be at least 18 years old to play it. In Vermont, women must have permission from their husbands before getting fake teeth. This guy got stranded with no service and used a drone to save his life. One day, Casey Ryan decided to take a hike with his friend in the snowy mountains of the Willamette National Forest in Oregon. During their hike, they came across a van driver who was stuck in the snow. Ryan and his friend tried to dig out the van, but the conditions were too icy. They had no cell service and the temperature was starting to drop, so they were running out of options. Eventually, they came up with a genius plan to put a phone on the drone and fly it up high enough so that it would get cell service. So they wrote an SOS message to Ryan's wife, then put it on the drone and put it up in the air for around a minute so it would send. When they landed the drone, they were astonished to see that the message had actually went through. Search and rescue then arrived early the next morning to save the men. This man is spending 100 days underwater. Joseph DeTurry, or Dr. Deep Sea, is a former US Navy diver who's been living underwater since March 1st. He plans to stay in a small shelter 22 feet below sea level for 100 days, breaking the previous world record, which was 73 days. But his real goal is to collect data and get people excited for scientific research. His underwater pod features a small kitchen, a living room kitchen, and small bunks for sleeping. He communicates to the outside world using his Instagram page. He can receive visitors and also plans to host a class field trip. But there are also many challenges. He has zero access to sunlight, and not to mention the bone-crushing pressure of the sea. Do you think Dr. Deep Sea will make it 100 days? This ice cream sundae costs $1,000. It's called the Golden Opulence Sundae, and you can find it at Serendipity 3 in New York City. It starts with 3 scoops of Tahitian vanilla bean ice cream that are covered in 23-karat edible gold leaves. Then it's topped with some chocolate sauce made from some of the most expensive and rarest chocolate in the world, and finished with exotic candied fruits from Paris, gold-covered almonds, chocolate truffles, and marzipan cherries. It's served with caviar that's infused with Grand Marnier and passion fruit. The sundae is also served in a $350 golden goblet that the customer gets to take home. It's so elaborate that you have to order it 48 hours in advance, and the restaurant only sells 1 of these per month. Bluetooth was never supposed to be called Bluetooth. In 1996, some of the biggest players in the tech space met to develop a universal short-range wireless connection between devices. The name Bluetooth was originally suggested as a code name for the project. It was inspired by Harold Bluetooth, a Viking king who had a dead tooth that appeared to be blue. King Bluetooth was responsible for uniting Denmark and Norway, just like the Bluetooth technology would unite 2 devices together through a wireless connection. This name was only intended as a placeholder. Later, the founders intended to change it to either Radio Wire or PAN, which stands for Personal Area Networking. But they were unable to claim the name Radio Wire in time for launch, and they decided that PAN was way too generic to find through an internet search. So the technology was introduced to the world as Bluetooth, and the rest is history. Ben & Jerry's has a graveyard for their failed ice cream flavors. They have nearly 100 ice cream flavors on the market, but not every flavor combo that they come up with is a winner. In 1997, the company built a physical cemetery to celebrate some of their retired flavors. The graveyard, that even has headstones, started with 4 flavors, and since then again has grown to 35. Some of the flavors lasted less than a year on the shelves, like Cow Power and Rainforest Crunch, while others still have devoted fans, like Wavy Gravy and Creme Brulee. Other retired flavors include Sugar Plum, White Russian, and Miss Jelina's Sweet Potato Pie. If you ever go to the Ben & Jerry's factory in Vermont, you can even visit the site to pay your respects. Here's what things costed in 1950. At the grocery store, a loaf of bread costed 14 cents. A gallon of milk cost 80 cents, and a dozen eggs cost 49 cents. A trip to the movies would set you back 65 cents for a ticket and another 10 cents for a bag of popcorn. A bleacher seat for an MLB All-Star game costed $1. A night at a hotel was $5.90. The average price for a new car was around $1,500, and the gas to fill it cost 18 cents a gallon. Finally, a massive 12.5-inch black and white TV was around $150. Things with misleading names. Even though the word nut is in the name, peanuts are a legume, like peas and beans. The lead in lead pencils is actually a mix of graphite and clay. French fries originated in Belgium, and the French horn originated in Germany. Pork butt is a cut of meat that comes from a pig's shoulder. Fireflies are actually beetles, and guinea pigs are actually rodents. Finally, white chocolate isn't really chocolate because it contains no solid part of the cocoa bean. 5 celebrities who turned down famous roles. The role of Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy was originally offered to Amanda Seyfried, but she turned it down because she thought the movie would be a flop. The role then went to Zoe Saldana. Steven Spielberg, the director of Jurassic Park, admitted that his first choice to play Dr. Alan Grant was Harrison Ford, but he passed on the opportunity for unknown reasons. Selena Gomez was originally supposed to play the lead role in Disney's Camp Rock, but she turned it down so it could go to her friend Demi Lovato. Rachel McAdams passed on the opportunity to play Andy Sachs in The Devil Wears Prada 3 times. The part eventually went to Anne Hathaway, who later admitted that she was 9th choice for the role. Drew Barrymore was originally casted to play Sidney Prescott in the Scream franchise, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. She does still appear in the film, but the lead went to Neve Campbell. This waitress's random act of kindness changed her life. 18-year-old Yvonne Williams is working at a Waffle House in Texas trying to save money for college. But one day she noticed a customer struggling. An elderly man sitting in the corner was having trouble cutting his food, so Williams decided to stop during a busy shift and go cut the food for him. Another customer at the restaurant snapped the photo and posted it on Facebook. The picture went viral and the young lady became a local hero. The story caught the attention of the city's mayor, who surprised her at work by declaring an official Ebony Williams Day. The Texas Southern University also rewarded her with a $16,000 scholarship for her kindness. This chimp was separated from her newborn baby, and when they reunite, it might make you cry. At the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita, Kansas, a chimpanzee named Mahale delivers a baby chimp via an emergency C-section. But the baby chimp, named Kachiza, has trouble getting enough oxygen, so he needs extra medical attention, which means he had to be separated from his mother. They kept the two apart for nearly 2 days. When the baby was healthy enough, Mahale got to finally see him again. The zookeepers watched closely as the two were reunited. At first, Mahale seems unsure, as if she doesn't recognize the baby chimp. But then when the baby reaches out his arms for his mom, this is what happens.
Yeah, Mahale. What a good girl.
This is the most expensive bottle of water in the world. I'm most likely going to pronounce this wrong, but it's called Acqua di Cristallo Tributo Amada Gillini, and in 2010 it sold at an auction for over $80,000. The water is sourced from 3 different locations: water springs in Fiji and France, and glaciers in Iceland. These places have some of the cleanest water on the earth. It comes in a 750 milliliter glass bottle with an elaborate design by famed bottle designer Fernando Altamirano. The entire thing is coated in solid 24 karat gold. There's even gold inside of the water, which makes it more alkaline and, of course, way more expensive. All of the proceeds from the auction went to organizations fighting climate change, and 12 years later it still holds the world record for the most expensive bottle of water. This penguin runs from a killer whale and finds an unlikely way to escape. This group of tourists is out on a boat tour in Antarctica when they stop to observe a pod of orca whales. Suddenly, the killer whales spot a penguin and take after it. They chase the penguin back and forth several times, and it looks like the penguin's a goner, but again and again he manages to escape. The penguin swims for his life while the tourists cheer him on, and with nowhere to go, the penguin heads for the boat. It then tries to jump onto the boat, but it doesn't quite make it. So he tries again, and with a hand from the tourists, he manages to make it on the boat. The orca whales eventually leave, and the penguin returns back to the water safely. Strange food combinations that people swear by. First up, we have vanilla ice cream and soy sauce. The salty soy sauce mixed with sweet ice cream apparently creates a caramel-like flavor. But if you're trying this, just go easy on the soy sauce. Next is Dr. Pepper and peanuts. This combo is popular in Texas and other parts in the South. You may not think it's too strange until I tell you that the peanuts go inside the Dr. Pepper. So that way every sip you take comes with a salty surprise. If you thought pineapples on pizza was controversial, wait until you hear about bananas on pizza. In Sweden, people love to load up their pizza with anything and everything that they can imagine. And one of their most popular combos is the curry banana pizza. Finally, we have peanut butter and pickle sandwich. This combo originates from the Great Depression when food was hard to get. Two foods that were cheap and easy to find were pickles and peanut butter. 3 of the world's most luckiest people. This guy was using a pull-up bar when all of a sudden it broke. Luckily, it broke at the right time and he landed on his feet. This guy almost fell in the lake while trying to do a trick, but he ended up saving it and looking even cooler than what he was trying to do. And finally, this kid missed the hoop that he was aiming at, but managed to get it in the one beside him. What's even crazier is he managed to do the exact same thing his very next shot, but on the other side. Do you think you can pass the speed reading test? Well, let's find out. Level 1 was pretty easy, and level 2 should be still pretty easy, but just wait for 3, 4, and 5. Now this next one, you're probably like, I'm not going to be able to read it, but your brain can actually read faster than you think, guys. Just watch. Boom! Now this one is pretty tough, and the next one is pretty much impossible, but just stay tuned. Like, I got most of that, but this one, there's no chance. Yes, but no. Some people who go to the gym and exercise all the time are too lazy to take the stairs and always take the elevators. Yes, it's nice to have breakfast in bed, but it's not nice having all the crumbs after. When you're in a public bathroom, you wash your hands and get them clean, but then when you leave, you gotta grab the dirty door. The recipe picture always looks so nice, but then after you make it, it doesn't look the same. And finally, we spend lots of money on a toy for our pet, and then they end up using a cardboard box. Yes, but no. Part 2. You spend a lot of money on a wallet like this nice Gucci one, but then you have nothing to put inside of it. Some people are so particular about having a clean computer, and this is what their desk looks like. We eat salads to try and be healthy, but then to make them taste good, you gotta put some unhealthy stuff in them. Yes, a phone without a case looks really good, but this is what'll happen if you do that. And finally, when some people go to something really cool, they take lots of pictures and post them online, but they don't even pay attention to it. These are the most expensive mistakes. If this first one wasn't caught on camera, I don't think anyone would have believed him. This person just wanted to get a Coca-Cola for $2.75, but the vending machine glitched, charging him $280, and he didn't even get a drink. And finally, we have this guy who was happy about getting his brand new 65-inch TV until this happened. Now, I have no idea why this person was recording, because if they would have just helped, I don't think this would have happened. 5 things you use all the time, but I have no idea what they're called. First off, we have the dot that's placed over a lowercase I or J. This is called a tittle. The cardboard sleeve that you use to protect your hand from a hot cup of coffee is called a zarf. The metal thing that connects an eraser to a pencil or a handle to a paintbrush is called a ferrule. The little bumps on the outside of raspberries and blackberries are called drupelets. And finally, the technical term for a hashtag sign or pound symbol is called an octothorpe. This is the unluckiest man alive. Frano Selleck was riding on a train when it went off the tracks and into a river. 17 passengers died, but he was able to swim to shore with a broken arm. The next year, when he was on a plane, the door detached from it and the plane crashed. 19 people died, but Selleck was found in a haystack with just a few bruises. In 1996, he was on a bus when it drove into a river. 4 people died, but again, he survived. In 1970, his car's fuel tank exploded on the highway. In 1973, his car's fuel tank leaked and his car caught on fire. Fast forward to 1995 and he was in another bus crash. The next year when he was driving, a truck came barreling towards him. He managed to quickly jump out of his vehicle and he watched it explode. 3 people who got instant karma. First off, a boss didn't want to get his shoes wet while walking to his car, so he made one of his employees place a wooden board down, but it didn't really make a difference. The man recording this video finally caught the person who's been stealing his packages, but when the person tried to escape, they ended up getting stuck in the snow and eventually gave up and waited till the police arrived. And finally, during this random 1v1 basketball game, the man was able to block the girl's first shot and immediately started taunting her. But immediately after this is what happened. Have you ever wondered why people take ice baths? Well, here's why. Ice baths, or cold plunges, have become a lot more popular lately, and I've even started taking them. Lots of athletes have started doing them because when you get in cold water, your blood vessels get smaller. Then when you get out of the water, due to the temperature change, your blood vessels quickly reopen, which flushes your muscle metabolic waste products. And in regular terms, that means it speeds up muscle recovery from workouts. A study from 2016 showed that people who took cold showers were 30% less likely to call in sick to work, which means it helps support your immune system to fight off colds. There's a bunch more things that it does, like increase your blood circulation, but my favorite is it increases your dopamine levels by 250%. And for those of you that don't know what dopamine is, that's the hormone that makes you feel good. This lady was walking her dog when all of a sudden, a gator attacked her. The 85-year-old's neighbor immediately called the police when she saw this, and here's the conversation.
She was walking her little dog, and the gator grabbed the dog and took her. Fell down. Is she alive? Yes, she's alive. He's pulled her in. He's pulled her in the lake. Too late. It's too late. Oh my God.
Did you pull her under?
Yes. Oh no. I was trying to stick a pole out for her, and I was calling you at the same time, and she's gone.
Okay.
She's gone.
In this video, a guy tries to place a massive 75-inch TV in the back of his car. After realizing that it won't fit, he tries to place it through the back seat. But then he again realizes that there's no way it's gonna fit. So in the end, he decides to place the TV on top of his car and then just drives away. Animals that are bigger than you thought. This is how big horses' lungs are. This is how big a giant leatherback sea turtle is compared to a human. Here's how big a giant African land snail is compared to a hand. Here's how big a blue whale's heart is, again compared to a human. Here's how big eagle claws are compared to a human hand. And here's how big a saltwater crocodile is. Gross habits that are actually good for you. Burping after you finish a meal is actually good for you because it helps relieve your stomach from air. When you bite your nails, you consume some of the bacteria that's on them. This makes your immune system create white blood cells, which helps fight against colds. Studies show that kids who bite on their nails or suck on their fingers are less likely to get sick or allergies. When you take a shower, it washes away your essential oils, which is important to help protect and hydrate your skin. So if you skip a shower every once in a while, it can actually be good for you. These two friends snuck into a movie theater dressed as one. The guy named Matthew hung on to his friend named Bo. Then Bo put on really baggy clothing over top, which he said cost him $60. Then after the outfit was secure, Bo walked into the movie theater and tried to get the ticket.
We'd like 2 tickets for the Avengers at 120.
2 for the Avengers at 120 would be $19.50. Books are going to be in theater number 3,
Cool.
which is on the 2nd floor.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Thanks so much.
This teen was sent to jail for pushing her friend off a bridge. In this footage, it shows Taylor Smith pushing her friend off of a bridge in Washington. Her friend fell 60 feet and landed on her stomach, causing her to break 6 ribs and puncture her lungs. Taylor Smith apologized in court, thinking she wouldn't have to go to jail, but in the end, she was sentenced to 2 days. Do you think that was enough? Here's how serious the security was at this year's Super Bowl. First off, there were 8 federal agencies working on this, for example, Homeland Security. They were working with the state, county, and local police. The police said they had been planning this for the last 18 months, and during that time, they'd been planning for every single possible scenario, like a shooting, a bomb, a plane crash, and even a major accident on the freeway nearby. Drones were a serious threat this year, so they made a no-drone zone, which was 30 miles wide. But there were helicopters in the air circling the stadium. If the helicopters saw something wrong, they would let the police on the ground know immediately, and they'll be in an emergency operations center, which is in a secret location. There was over 800 cameras watching the stadium and people monitoring them 24/7. Over 1,000 police were at the stadium during the event, and they also had bomb-sniffing dogs on patrol all week. This old lady fell while delivering pizza, and you won't believe what happened to her. The lady is a 72-year-old great-grandmother who works at Domino's, and one day while she was delivering pizza, she fell. The homeowner rushed outside to make sure she was okay, but the only thing she was worried about was that she damaged their food.
Sorry.
Are you hurt?
I ruined your food.
The lady used to work at a school as a lunch lady, but she took the job at Domino's Pizza because she needed the money. The homeowners felt terrible that she was working at the age that she is, and not because she wanted to, but because she had to. So they posted the video of her falling onto Facebook along with a link to a GoFundMe page. Just the next day, they went to Domino's and found her working there and told her that they made a GoFundMe page for her. Then they revealed that it made $235,000 and she was able to retire. 3 bizarre things found in pools. A lady staying at a resort was going down to the pool for a morning aerobics class when she saw a 5-foot crocodile in the pool. She phoned the rangers to come and get it, and when they took it out, they couldn't find a marking on it, which means it must have been wild. In California, the police were chasing a car, but it was driving so crazy that they had to stop for safety reasons. The car was later found in a pool, but the driver was nowhere to be seen, so they think he must have ran to avoid the charges. And lastly, one morning a family woke up to a hippo in their pool. Their pool went from crystal clear and clean to dark green and dirty. But the father is a safari director, so he's used to seeing animals like that. They said the hippo stayed there for 10 days before it finally left. This is gonna freak you out. As you can tell, obviously, SpongeBob and Patrick are nowhere close to each other. But we are gonna make them go together without changing this picture. So what I want you guys to do is grab your phone or iPad or whatever you guys are watching this video on and touch your nose to the screen like this and watch what happens. You can only like this video if SpongeBob and Patrick are together. 5 photos you'll have to look at twice. First off, in this picture, it looks like the person only has half a body. But the reason it looks like that is because they're just holding up a mirror. At first, it looks like the camel wearing the red is standing on the camel wearing the blue, but the camel in the red is just farther back in the photo. It looks like this rock is falling from the sky and about to hit the raccoon, but it's actually just a rock in a lake, and the lake has a reflection of the sky. At first, this might look like a painting, but it's actually just a swan swimming in water. And finally, we have this building that's almost floating, and to be honest, I don't even know what's going on here. Here's how to survive if you get stuck in quicksand. First off, there's no need to panic because it's actually almost impossible to drown in quicksand. Your body would stop at your waist since quicksand is 2 times more dense than a human body. So firstly, get rid of any backpack or gear that you're wearing to make it easier to get out. Then start wiggling your legs to loosen up the sand so that water can trickle down to make your feet and legs slide out easier. Next, you'll want to lay down on your back and start doing a backstroke until your feet come out of the sand. Then stay on your back and start rolling as fast as you can to get out of the quicksand. Here's why public bathroom doors don't touch the ground. When using a public bathroom, you've probably wondered why they don't touch the ground and offer full privacy. Well, there's 3 main reasons, and reason number 1 is that it's way easier to clean. Because public bathrooms are so busy, they have to be cleaned multiple times a day, and this saves a lot of time. The second reason is for safety. If someone passes out while they're in a public bathroom, it's easy to see them, and it's also a lot easier for first responders to unlock the door. And the final reason is that it's cheaper for the store to buy and replace. This is a sunfish. They're one of the largest fish in the ocean and also one of the most useless. One reason is because they can't swim since none of their fins move. And because of this, they're often found stuck on the surface, flipped over sideways. When they're there, pelicans come and pick off some of the 40 different types of parasites that live on their bodies. They actually do have the cells to make a movable fin, but the only problem is the fin doesn't grow out of their body, it grows inside of their body. Their teeth are also fused together so their mouth stays open, and the only thing that they can eat since they're so slow is jellyfish. This 3-year-old was kidnapped in the middle of the day. On the sidewalk, you can see a grandma walking with 3 grandchildren. When all of a sudden, a man covering himself with a blanket comes and kidnaps one of the toddlers. The poor old lady, who probably hasn't ran in years, had to make the tough decision to leave her 2 other grandchildren and run after the kidnapper. You can also see a man get out of his car and run after the kidnapper as well. Since it was the middle of the day, lots of people saw this happening and they cornered him into a gas station. Then he set the toddler down and walked away like nothing even happened. He was later found by the police sleeping in the doorway of a store and he was arrested. This man passed away after being shot by a dog. 30-year-old Joseph Smith was sitting in the passenger seat of his friend's truck, and in the back seat was hunting gear, a rifle, and a dog. According to the police, the dog at the back was a canine which belonged to his friend, and it stepped on the rifle, firing at him, which killed him. 5 pictures you need to see at least once in your life. First off, we have a sheep that hasn't been sheared in 6 years. Next up, this is how babies get x-rays. This was all the germs on an 8-year-old boy's hand after playing outside. This is what a turtle looks like when it's coming out of hibernation. And finally, this is what the sunset looks like from above the clouds. This picture won the best the chessboard. Now, if you go to the side of the chessboard, it reveals how this was made. This is not the same person, it's two different people, but they're both the same height, which is 6'4". They both have red hair and beards. They both wear the same glasses, but the craziest part is they have the exact same name, Brady Feigl. And you're probably thinking, why would their parents name them the exact same thing when they look so similar? Well, they're actually not brothers. They even did a DNA test, and it turns out they're not even related at all. Has this viral video finally been solved? Lots of people think this looks like Dobby from Harry Potter, but other people think it's just a kid wearing underwear on his head. So a reporter went to the house and asked the kid that lives there this question.
You sure you don't dance with underwear on your head down the driveway at night?
I'm sure.
Do you think it was him? 5 facts that sound fake but are real. The Guinness Book of World Records was created to settle arguments people were having at bars. More people live in Bangladesh than in Russia. A normal cloud weighs around 1.1 million pounds. There's more fake flamingos in the world than there are real ones. And finally, if you put your finger in your ear and scratch it, it sounds like Pac-Man. It was a normal day when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, hundreds of birds come falling to the ground. Lots of them immediately fly back into the air, but some of them died on impact. No one's 100% sure why this happened, but one zookeeper said he thinks they were running from a predator. And I bet you can't guess where this happened. That's right, in Mexico. If you see mold on your bread, don't eat the rest of it. You've probably at some point in your life found mold on bread and decided to cut it off and eat the rest of it. Well, by doing this, it doesn't mean the rest of it is free from mold. Because mold is like fungus. If you could see the mold, then underneath, there's a bunch of tiny hidden roots called hyphae. And those roots release spores called mycotoxins, which can sometimes cause diseases in humans. So by eating the good part, there's a chance that it can still be moldy. Some maneuvers in fighter jets require the pilot to experience 9 Gs of force, and this is how they train for it.
On top, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Legs, butt, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Looking good, work it out, breathe. 1, 2, breathe. Release the stick, keep straining. Good work. Congratulations.
Thanks.
3 criminals who got caught for the dumbest things. In 2011, a man from Florida attempted to rob a convenience store with a squirt gun filled with juice. Luckily, the worker recognized the juice as juice that they sell and he called the police. They then tracked him down and arrested him. In 2014, a man from Australia attempted to rob a gas station with a banana. He had peeled the banana and used it to simulate the shape of a gun. The man was also arrested and charged with armed robbery. In 2018, a man in California was breaking into a house. But he didn't realize that he had accidentally dialed 911 while he was still in the house. The operator heard noises in the background, so he sent police to the phone's location, where the man was then arrested. People who did crazy things to avoid being caught. Frank Abagnale Jr. was a con artist and imposter who managed to avoid the law for many years by pretending to be various professionals, including a pilot, a doctor, and a lawyer. He even managed to pass an exam and become an attorney for a little while before he got caught. His story was later turned into a movie and is called Catch Me If You Can. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was a Mexican drug lord who managed to avoid being caught by using tunnels and secret passageways to avoid detection. He was eventually caught and is currently serving life in prison. Finally, Edward Snowden was a former National Security Agency contractor who leaked classified information about the agency's surveillance activities. To avoid prosecution, he fled to Russia where he was granted protection. He currently lives in Moscow, but he remains a controversial person. The worst jobs to ever exist. The first is a medieval executioner. Their job was to give the death penalty on people, and it was often by hanging them or taking off their heads. But they also often lived in poverty and were at risk of being attacked from angry mobs. The second job is a coal miner in the 19th century and early 20th century. They worked in dark, dangerous, tight spaces with a high risk of death or injury due to cave-ins, explosions, and respiratory illnesses due to cave-ins, explosions, and respiratory diseases from inhaling coal. The last job is a human sanitation worker in ancient Rome. They were in charge of cleaning the city's streets, which were always covered in sewage. They also had to deal with unpleasant tasks like removing bodies from animals and humans if they passed away in the streets. The strangest last meal requests on death row. Philip Workman's final request was to get a large vegetarian pizza delivered to a homeless person. But the prison denied doing that, so he ate nothing. On the day of his death, many people from around the world donated pizza to homeless shelters. David Leon Woods was on death row for 22 years before he was put to death. For his last meal, he chose a pizza and a birthday cake, which he shared with his family. But the strangest part is, his birthday wasn't for another 3 months after his death. John Wayne Gacy, otherwise known as the killer clown named Pogo, ate 12 fried shrimp, a bucket of KFC chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. How do dreams actually work? Well, during the REM, or rapid eye movement stage of your sleep, your brain becomes more active and your body becomes paralyzed. And during this time is when you start dreaming. But where do dreams come from? Well, some scientists believe that dreams are a way for our brains to process stuff that happened during the day. Others think that dreams are a way for our brain to practice and prepare for future real-life situations. This boy had to get 232 teeth removed. Ashik Gavai was taken to the hospital for swelling in his mouth when he was 17 years old. He was then diagnosed with complex odontoma, which is a condition where your gums make a whole bunch of teeth, and this is a real photo. So he had to get surgery to get the extra teeth removed, which took multiple hours. But in the end, they were able to pull out over 200 teeth, and this is what he looks like now. 3 revolutionary products you need to know about. The Life Straw is what it sounds like. It's a straw that can save your life. It contains a filter that can get rid of 99.99% of germs and parasites. So if you're out in the wilderness and you have no water, just pull out the straw and start sucking whatever water you can find. The next item is called a SwitchBot, and I actually have one. Basically, you can put these on whatever you want, but the most common thing is a light switch. Then you can use your phone or your voice to switch it on. It also comes with an attachment so you can turn certain things off too, like a light switch. Finally, we have this alarm clock, but it's not an ordinary alarm clock. It has wheels. And what it does is when it goes off, it starts running around your room making noises, which forces you to get out of bed so you can shut it off. Is it dangerous to tickle a stingray? You've most likely seen this viral video before of a man tickling a stingray, and it appears like the stingray likes it since he's laughing at it. But here's what an expert had to say.
It is not safe for the animal at all because of the fact they're animals that belong in the water. They breathe in the water. If you have them on land for too long, they're going to have issues that are based off oxygen depravity.
This 7-year-old girl saves herself from a creepy man. Emmy McCardle was laying in her front yard when a vehicle drove by. The car's window then rolled down and a man yelled hello. The girl looked up, then immediately ran towards her front door. While she was running, the man asked her if she wanted a bicycle, and this is what she said.
No.
Later in an interview, she said he seemed like a tricky man and was taught to stay away from them. The weirdest laws that actually existed. In ancient Egypt, it was considered a crime to shave your beard. Only the pharaoh was allowed to have a clean-shaved face, since it was a symbol of his power and majesty. In Dunstable, England, it used to be illegal to beat a rug in the streets after 11 p.m. This law was put in place to prevent loud noises and let people sleep peacefully at night. And finally, in Alabama, it's illegal to wear a fake mustache that causes laughter in church. This law was put in place to prevent people from disrupting religious services with funny disguises. 3 aggressive ways people got revenge. One day, a man was tired of his neighbor's loud music, so he decided to get revenge by playing his own music at his house even louder. This ended up causing a dispute between the 2 neighbors, and the man who decided to play the music even louder than his neighbor ended up getting a noise complaint from the authorities. A lady was upset with her coworker who kept taking credit for her ideas. To get revenge, the lady started giving her coworker bad ideas to make her look bad in front of her other coworkers and her boss. And finally, a person was tired of their partner's habit of leaving dirty dishes in the sink. So to get revenge, the person started leaving their dirty dishes in the sink as well, which created a huge pile that their partner had to clean up. This ended up causing a big fight and they eventually broke up. Unbelievable things that happen in China every day. The Chinese are encouraged to sleep at work after they finish eating their lunch. The most common work schedule in China is working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And in return, they get a 2-hour lunch, but lots of places enforce them to sleep during that time as well. Here's what would happen if it rained every single day of the year. First off, the most obvious thing that would happen is the ground would be completely filled with water, causing worldwide flooding, which would make it difficult for people to do their daily tasks like go to work or school because the roads and sidewalks would be underwater. It could also cause buildings, bridges, and tunnels to all fall apart from being underwater for so long. Because of the constant rain, it would make it almost impossible for crops to grow, which would lead to a worldwide food shortage. And finally, because it's constantly raining and there's no sunshine, lots of people could fall into depression. This FBI agent accidentally shot someone while doing a backflip. He He was showing off his dance moves in a circle by doing a backflip, and while in midair, his firearm falls out onto the ground. When he quickly tried to pick it up, it fired and hit an innocent man. The man said his leg went completely red from blood, but he forgives the FBI agent and doesn't want to press charges because he didn't want to ruin his life over this accident. The weirdest online jobs. There's a company called Teo Bayo that offers 10-second vertical videos for you to buy. The videos range from people showing off wads of cash to videos of people sitting in sports cars. The point of these videos are to make it seem like you're the one filming it so you could post it online and flex to your friends. One person who makes these clips for people to buy said he makes $3,000 USD per month. You won't believe what this hairdresser did to this lady. The lady was getting her hair washed, but she kept lifting up her head to talk to her friend. The hairdresser was getting annoyed and told her to just stay still or else it would take forever. So she said she was done moving, but then she moved again. At this point, the hairdresser had had enough and did this to her. 5 random acts of vandalism that's actually genius. This pole looks like a cow is being picked up by a UFO. Someone turned this thing on the ground into a light switch. This person drew a stickman painting over the graffiti removal number. This building had some fire burns on it, so someone drew a dragon beside it. And finally, this person drew someone picking berries from a plant. Here's why they're called killer whales. No fatal attacks on humans have been documented in the ocean, but they're a huge threat to sea life. When you think of the top ocean predator, you probably think of the great white shark. But it's actually the killer whale because they have a diverse diet and they eat everything. They hunt in packs like wolves and eat everything from very small fish to big sharks. Don't throw these bags away. You've probably came across these before after buying a new bag or maybe new shoes. Well, instead of putting your phone in a bag of rice when you drop it in water, put it in a bag with these bags. They're called silica gel and they attract water molecules. That's why they're put in with shoes, for example, because they attract moisture, preventing things like mold. So if you put them in a bag with your phone, it'll suck it dry. The 5 richest kids in the world. At number 5, we have Prince Charles Arthur Lewis, who is the 3rd child of Prince William and Princess Catherine with a net worth of $400 million. In 4th place, we have Blue Ivy Carter, who is a singer and the firstborn daughter of Beyonce and Jay-Z with a net worth of $500 million. In 3rd place is Kylie Jenner and Travis Scott's oldest daughter named Stormy Webster, and her net worth is $726 million. In 2nd place is Prince George Alexander Lewis, who is Prince William and Princess Catherine's oldest child with a net worth of $3.6 billion. And in 1st place is his sister, Princess Charlotte of Cambridge, with a net worth of $5 billion. People who got what they deserved. This lady got pulled over for no real reason, and you can see her take off her seatbelt when she's in park because it's a habit. But when she asked the officer why she was pulled over, he said because she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. Luckily, she had a dash cam recording her and the officer was proven wrong in court. On all Rolls Royces, they have an ornament on the front, and when you lock the car, it hides away so no one steals it. But when the owner of this Rolls Royce saw people sitting on his car, he decided to unlock the vehicle, which makes the ornament go out. And finally, when it was time for this person to pay at a phone repair shop, she tried to run out without paying, but luckily, the worker has a button behind the counter which locks the door so she was trapped inside. 5 celebrities who own exotic pets. Salma Hayek has a rescue owl named Kering, who likes to hang out on her shoulders and share her wine. Tracy Morgan loves his octopus named Wyandotte so much, he spent $400,000 on a custom 2,700-gallon tank for her. In 2010, Leonardo DiCaprio spent $400 on an African spurred tortoise that could live for up to 80 years. Paris Hilton has a kinkajou named Baby Love, and even though the tropical rainforest mammal bit her once, Baby Love is still part of her family. Nick Cage has owned all sorts of crazy pets, including crows, albino cobras, and at one point, a 2-headed snake named Harvey. 5 genius products that were invented by accident. The Post-it was invented by Dr. David Spencer, who was trying to make a really strong adhesive. But what he actually did was the exact opposite. A weak adhesive that sticks lightly to surfaces. Popsicles were invented by an 11-year-old boy when he accidentally left a cup of lemonade outside overnight. He had left the stirring stick inside it and the liquid froze around it. Play-Doh was originally invented as a wallpaper cleaner until it became a children's toy. Tea bags were invented to carry samples of tea, but customers found them useful, letting them soak inside of hot water. And finally, bubble wrap. It was originally invented to be used as a 3D wallpaper, but when that failed, the inventors decided to start marketing it as a packing material. 5 close calls caught on camera. This man is cleaning the snow off of his car when he hears something, so he looks up. He manages to get out of the way just as an 8-foot block of concrete falls onto his car. This car is stopped in traffic when a man exits from the passenger side. The man then runs across the street without checking the bus lane and nearly gets hit. This young gymnast attempts a stunt, but loses balance and falls during a flip. Luckily, her coach is waiting in the wings and manages to catch her just in time. This family of ducks is trying to safely cross the road when it appears like a car runs them over. Incredibly, none of the ducks were hit and they managed to make it to the other side safely. Finally, this man was on a hike when he came across a baby bobcat. What he didn't know is the mom was close by. The bobcat stalked the hiker for around 6 minutes and kept aggressively lunging towards him until it eventually ran off. These are some of the biggest mistakes in fast food history. In 2015, Burger King offered a limited edition Halloween Whopper with a black burger bun. The reviews for the burger were actually pretty good, but it turns out that the food dye in the bun had one unfortunate consequence. It caused customers to have bright green poop. Chipotle's first attempt at queso was a huge failure. Customers complained that it was watery and flavorless, and the negative press caused Chipotle's stock to drop. Fortunately, Chipotle dropped the old queso for a better one. In the 1980s, McDonald's rolled out the McSpaghetti, but customers had no interest in eating pizza and spaghetti from a burger place, so McDonald's discontinued the item. Finally, we have Taco Bell's seafood salad. Because of the success from McDonald's Filet-O-Fish, lots of fast food chains wanted to try seafood as well, but Taco Bell's crab, shrimp, and whitefish salad was a huge flop, and it was removed from the menu after several reports of food poisoning. This is how to escape quicksand. If you ever find yourself stuck in quicksand, don't panic. Despite what happens in the movies, it's actually almost impossible to drown, because quicksand is denser than the human body, so it can't pull you under. So the air in your lungs will keep your upper body above the sand, and only your legs will be under. So to free your lower body, first wiggle one leg in a circular motion. This will create small pockets of air for water to trickle down into. The water will help loosen the sand and allow you to pull your leg out to surface. Now with one leg free, kneel forward onto that knee to distribute the weight. Then repeat the circular motion with your other leg, and congratulations, you survived quicksand. 3 potato chip flavors that failed. Wow chips were a fat-free brand produced by Frito-Lay. The chips contained a fat substitute called Olestra, but it turned out to cause stomach cramps and diarrhea. The company then placed a warning sign on the bags and rebranded them as Light Chips before discontinuing them in 2016. In 2012, Pringles introduced a new line of dessert Pringles that included flavors like pumpkin spice and white chocolate peppermint, but the reviews were bad and the flavors didn't last long. Finally, Lay's Cappuccino Chip was one of the finalists in a nationwide competition for a new flavor. The winner was decided by fans who voted, and judging by all the negative reviews from customers, Cappuccino never stood a chance. This teacher promised her students a treat if she made an impossible shot. This 3rd grade teacher, Kathleen Fitzpatrick, or as her students at Holy Trinity School in Washington, D.C. call her, Miss Fitz. On one Friday afternoon during recess, Miss Fitz was playing basketball with her students, and she decided to make them a bet. If she can make a shot, she'll bring in hot chocolate for the whole class on Monday. Miss Fitz then takes a few dribbles as her students cheer her on. She then launches up a Hail Mary shot, and boom, the kids go nuts. It turns out Miss Fitz actually played college basketball, and once hit a 3-point buzzer beater to win the game. But I bet this shot for hot cocoa felt even better. Perfectly timed moments caught on camera. This guy was doing flips on an outside gymnastics bar when all of a sudden it snapped at just the right time to avoid him from getting hurt. A guinea pig and its owner have the exact same reaction to thunder. This guy grabs a hat from his friend's head and throws it into the crowd where it lands perfectly on a stranger's head. This guy was able to summon lightning with his fist. And finally, these 2 medics are dressed identical and perfectly in sync. Smart tactics that police use when they pull you over. If the cop is suspicious of you, then they'll tap your rear tail light. By doing this, it may startle the driver and make them stop whatever they're doing. This also lets the officer see if the trunk is locked so no one can jump out and ambush them. But the main reason they do this is so that they can leave their fingerprint. So if anything bad happens to the cop, they can prove that the suspect made contact with them. Here's what happens when chocolate factories mess up the shape. With Kit Kat bars, for example, if the shape gets messed up, then they all go into a big blue bin. Then it's combined with cocoa and sugar, and in the end, this is what they use to glue the waffles inside the Kit Kat together. If you see black spots on your fries, this is what it is. They're not anything bad, they're just pockets of sugar. If the fries are stored in a fridge or a freezer, then some of the starch that they contain turns into sugar. And when the cook deep fries them, it makes the sugar on the outside cook before the inside, which is why they're dark and can sometimes taste a little burnt.